So when I was 13, my friend, who we'll call Mary, had a grandma who ran a nail salon downtown. I grew up in a really small town in Alaska, but when I was younger, it seemed like a really safe place. As I got older, I realized just how corrupt and horrible it actually was, but at 13, I still wasn't totally aware of that. After school, Mary and I would always walk to her grandma's nail salon. It was in a building with a few other shops, and we would just kind of hang out and browse. There was a Thai restaurant that was our favorite ever, and we'd eat there a lot too, and we're pretty good friends with the restaurant owners. After some months of the same routine, just hanging out every day caused me and Mary's family to become like family. Her grandmother, who we'll start calling Gretchen, had the idea of wanting to open a little coffee stand in there. The other shops were a cookware store, a clothes consignment shop, a game shop, and a couple other random ones, so we figured it would have nice business. And she wanted Mary and I to work the coffee stand while she was in the nail salon. I partly believe it was that she just simply wanted us out of her hair. Anyways, we went and trained properly, but since we were 13, we were being paid under the table. We had set it up right in front of the Thai restaurant. After about a week of the coffee stand being up and running, this guy who looked about 18 to 20 years old, he would get a small vanilla latte every day and sit in the mall area and kind of watch us work, but also browse around the game shop, so we just kind of thought maybe he lived nearby and liked to come there every day, and maybe we hadn't noticed him because he probably wouldn't be coming in to get his nails done. He honestly looked kind of dirty and like he didn't care that much. When the months got hotter, we started walking home instead of having her mom drive us. There were a lot of kids walking around, so I didn't notice very much if people were behind me or in front of me. One of the nights we closed up shop a little late. It was about 9 p.m., which in Alaska is still fully sunny, and I noticed that someone was walking behind me, kind of close. I stopped dead in my tracks and didn't hear anything, so I kept walking, and I was sure I heard it this time. I turned around, and there he was. The same guy that was in the mall every day was following me. I was 13 and shy, so I just kept walking, and I made a loop around and walked to the mayor's office because the police station was too far away. I called my dad from there because I felt safe, and he came and got me. This repeated in slightly different ways for about 2 weeks, and eventually, I don't know how to this very day, he found out where I lived. He would knock on the door, leave flowers, call our home phone, all kinds of crazy stuff. My dad finally helped me get a restraining order, but it took about a month to get anyone to take us seriously and come see him at my workplace, as we had no idea what his name was. Once that was in effect, it stopped for about a week, and then he started showing up again. He continued stalking my home, and he even hung out by the fence of my school once it was back in session. Finally, I'd had enough. I moved in with my mom because she was frankly a better parent to me and was taking it way more seriously. She lived so far out that I couldn't walk anywhere, and she had no electricity or running water, but I didn't care anymore. I felt so much safer and so much more loved. I quit that job, and I took the bus every day. Eventually, he just disappeared, and I never heard about him again. This is another story about how my usually spot-on instincts concerning people failed me spectacularly. It starts with an innocent night on the town with my coworker and friend, Georgia. I always call her G. She's a teensy, pocket-sized elf of a girl who bears a close resemblance to a young Claire Danes, so not altogether unfortunate-looking. This was during a period when boyfriend and I were separated. She was single too, so we went out to the local watering holes together quite often. It was that period of our lives where a night on the town meant dressing to the nines and then drinking, dancing, and flirting all night long. Now, as for myself, I very rarely drink. I get inebriated even less often. My limit is usually 1 mixed drink or 2 beers. I just don't like to put myself into a state where I am not in control, especially in a bar-type setting where you really need to be on your guard. For this reason, I usually drove whenever we went to the local watering holes, but that night there was something wrong with my car. If I remember it correctly, there was an exhaust leak. It wasn't something that would keep the car from running, but could possibly cause us to be pulled over. Not a scenario that someone who has a drunk passenger and potentially a drink or two in their system wants to invite. Since we didn't want to run the risk of having any run-ins with the law, we decided that G would drive. Well, to make a long story short, G got spectacularly drunk and decided to leave with an ex that she happened to run into during the night. "Don't worry though," she says. "James said he would take you home." James was the nice-looking guy that she had introduced me to during the night. She told me that they went to the same church and she had known him since she was a kid, and he was a really nice guy. James and I had been talking and dancing and, yes, even flirting a little as the night progressed. Because I felt like we'd gotten to know each other a bit, and because he came with G's stamp of approval, not something she readily gave to anyone, I felt fairly comfortable accepting a ride home. Also, I was kind of put on the spot since G had already asked James and told me about it in front of him. I didn't want to insult a guy that I potentially wanted to go out with. Looking back, I wish to whatever you worship that I had just called a cab. On the way to my place, James dropped a lot of hints. "I'm not ready to call it a night. I'd like to hang out a little more. I could use another beer," etc. I casually told him that I was tired and ready for bed, and I thanked him for the ride. He asked for a kiss, and I gave him a playful peck on the cheek, patted him on the arm, and shut the car door. The next day I go out to run errands, and the phone rings as I'm walking in the door. It's James wanting to hang out. I'm tired, so I say he can come over and we'll watch a movie and hang out for a short while. When I hang up, I see he's left a couple messages while I was out. A little pushy, but okay, I guess. Maybe he just really likes me. We're sitting on the couch watching a movie, and he goes from friendly companion to full-on makeout mode in 0.2 seconds. I mean, 1 second we're sitting on the couch at a comfortable distance, not holding hands or even touching each other. The next, he's practically on top of me, ramming his tongue down my throat. Oh no, dude. Homegirl, don't play like that. So, I'm telling him no, and he's acting like he doesn't get it. He's getting slightly more and more aggressively affectionate, and I am starting to low-key panic. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I did eventually manage to get him out the door, relatively unscathed, I thought, save for a copious amount of unwanted slobber. But when I went to change for bed later, I found finger marks on my upper arms from where he gripped me so tightly. The next night, I got approximately 10 calls from James. I didn't answer. He left voicemails every single time. This was before everyone had electronic leashes, aka cell phones. I myself only had a landline, so it was a lot easier to ghost someone back then. I figured I'd just not answer the phone and he'd eventually give up, like most sensible people, right? Wrong. My phone rings at 4 a.m. Now we know nothing good happens at that hour of the night. People don't call you up to chat at 4 a.m., so when I was jolted out of sleep, I answered the phone automatically without even pausing to think or look at the caller ID. It's James. James says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm sleeping." He says, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, I am. That's what most people do at 4 a.m. on a work night." And then he says, "Why is your living room light on then?" You know that old saying, "my blood ran cold"? Well, I always thought it was a dramatic phrase to describe sudden fear, but you don't fully understand it until you experience it the way I did in that moment. He was calling me from right outside my front door. I was single, I lived alone, I had no weapon. I was in the habit of leaving certain lights on at all times because, quite honestly, I'm afraid of the dark. I feel safer with the lights on, and I even sleep with a bedside lamp on. I always have since I was a child. I don't remember what I said back, except that it involved a lot of swearing, and it ended with him pounding on my door and calling me repeatedly for about a half an hour. Eventually I had to call the police to get rid of him. The next day I sarcastically thanked G for the setup, and she was furious when she saw the bruises on my arms. She ended up admitting that she didn't really know James all that well, but they'd been acquainted for a long time and he, quote, seemed like a nice guy. He kept up the psycho-dialing for a while, but finally quit when G confronted him about my bruises and threatened to expose his behavior to their entire church community, and even worse, his mother. Thank goodness. James, wherever you are, let's never, ever meet again. My mother, my grandma, and I live in the same house but in two different flats in a very short street with only 6 houses total. We moved here in 2012 and everything was fine. One day there was an old man moving into another house on the street. He seemed very nice, but my image of him changed quickly when the incidents began. My grandma lives in the first floor, so everyone walking past the house can technically look into her flat when she has the blinds open. She started telling us about how she'd sometimes see 2 feet under the blinds of the big windows, always the same shoes. One day, she pulls them up while the shoes are there, and guess who it is? Yeah, the old man. Turns out she's been watched for quite some time through her windows, and he's even watched her from his balcony, from which he has a perfect view of the big window in her living room. If that wasn't bad enough, he started talking to me when I got home from school because I needed to pass by his house. We didn't know each other, we had nothing to do with each other, not even remotely. He begins asking how I was, if school was finally over, and so on. I didn't like that, but I politely answered. One day, he started asking about my grandma and my mother, and how they were doing, etc. I was very creeped out by this, given the history of incidents. I started ignoring him, and after a few days of ignoring him, he seemed to get the hint. But there's more. My grandma has a sort of caregiver who comes to her flat twice a week to clean and go grocery shopping with her because she can't walk or bend over that well anymore. This caregiver is also the one that comes to our stalking neighbor to help him. After my grandma brought it up to us that he was watching her the other day, the caregiver told us that the old man would want hugs from her, look at her ass, her cleavage, etc., and sometimes he would touch her in places like her waist or thighs, quote, unintentionally. If that isn't already more terrifying, he also rides the bus sometimes. Sometimes I'm in that same bus, or sometimes he even rides the school bus for some reason. I don't know why that's allowed. Anyways, one day I was waiting for the bus, and there was a girl with a hijab waiting for the bus as well. The man walks up to her and starts talking to her. I had my headphones in, so out of curiosity I put one out and listened to what he was saying. I was shocked when I heard how he was telling her that immigrants were a problem for us and how they should get out of the country, but in a way that didn't say it directly, but rather hinted at those things. I was horrified. The girl was really confused, and then the bus came, and she was relieved by that, understandably. This is just a selection of the creepiest and worst incidents. There were many more, but these were definitely the worst. I haven't seen him in a while though, so creepy old man from next door, let's not meet again. This incident happened with me in my junior year of high school. My best friend had posted a story on his Instagram account, tagging me and a friend that he had had from his previous school who had asked him about me because he found me, quote, interesting. My friend, not thinking too much of it, just linked to my profile and the guy sent me a request. I accepted it and he slid into my DMs. I was pretty naive as an 11th grader and he managed to get my phone number from me too. Turns out he was a desperate guy and somehow needed a girlfriend to show off in front of his friends. Now I know I shouldn't be mean, but this guy was 4 feet tall and ugly AF. The above-mentioned discoveries were made much later. He proposed to me, and I was flattered by his smooth talk. I obviously didn't say yes, thankfully. A few days later, I came to know about this guy and immediately blocked him from everywhere. Instagram, WhatsApp, Snapchat, all of it. The next day, my phone was blown up with calls and messages from his numerous fake IDs he had made just to contact me. I never replied, and I even asked my friend to tell him to stop contacting me, but that didn't stop him. He became my ardent stalker, and things worsened when he started contacting my real friends and people from my previous school, somehow bringing me up in conversation and asking about me. A lot of people came up to me asking about him and telling me how stupid I was to talk to him. After much persuasion and his numerous female friends coming up to me to unblock him, I did. He started telling me peculiar details of my life. It felt as if he knew everything the people with whom I hang out in school or after school or play PUBG with, and things only few people knew about me. He also knew my address, and he started to come after school just to see me. By this time, he had befriended each and every friend of mine, and because he physically never stalked me, I couldn't do anything about it. Thank God we weren't in the same school. My birthday's around the corner, 18th of May precisely, so he made a fake account, named it My Name's Birthday, and started posting my images which he collected by stalking my friends and I. I got that ID removed by getting it reported by all of my friends and blocked him once again. Thank God he lost my number when he formatted his phone and I wasn't stupid enough to give it to him again. I am now a senior, or 12th grader, and I realize how grave the issue was, and I'm thankful that I've dealt with it somehow. I'm not dating any guy, and I hope nobody gets such a creepy stalker like I did. So, tiny guy who wanted to date me so badly, let's not meet. So it all started in late 2015 when I was still in high school. I was crossing a bridge to go to school, and this very friendly man stopped me and asked me to fill out a survey about budgeting. I was like, okay, sure. And when I was done, he told me to fill out my contact details and gave reasons like how he's a social worker, etc., etc. Dumb me, of course, gave him my contact number. So dumb. But then again, I was so naive. At the very least, I was smart enough to give him a fake name. In 2016, I started to receive random messages from this very guy and was getting super creeped out by it. He knew which school I went to because I was wearing my uniform then, and was starting to ask personal questions. I tried to avoid all of them and generally didn't reply to him, but he kept texting me, perhaps a message every day. And when he wished me a happy Valentine's Day, I was like, nope, nope, nope. Blocked him, because at that point I didn't feel safe at all. Later that year, we received a police notice calling for witnesses because they arrested a few perverts in the area I was schooling in. There were multiple girls' secondary schools and tertiary education institutions in the area. In the notice there were several photos, and I saw that very same man, the man who approached me to fill out the survey. I was disgusted. Turns out he would use this survey as a tactic and try to approach female teenagers and take photos of them and harass them through text later. I was shocked as well. My school was in a reputable neighborhood, and we all assumed that there wouldn't be such creeps, but gosh, we were all wrong. I was glad that he was caught by the police. To the photo-taking creep, let's not meet again, right? But I did. After he was arrested, I graduated and started schooling in a tertiary institution in 2017, an hour's drive away from where my high school was. I moved as well to the school dorm nearby. As I was walking home one day, I caught sight of him lurking at the bus stop nearby. Oh boy, I could never forget his face. He looked even creepier, carrying a black bag and holding some papers that looked eerily like survey forms whilst holding a very old camera phone. How did I even miss that camera phone when I encountered him last time? I was super scared. How could he be here? Wasn't he arrested last year? Was he stalking me the whole time? I was almost crying and quickly called a friend and walked past him. Once he was out of sight, I ran home whilst on the phone. I was telling all of my schoolmates to be careful, and soon enough the school was informed. The discipline master and a few PE teachers went to apprehend the stalker sometime later, dragged him into the school office and contacted the authorities. I was informed that he was released last year because of insufficient evidence. Apparently, in the place where I live, taking photos of girls and women not sexual in nature is not a crime. They searched his flat and there wasn't anything incriminating other than a creepy ton of photos of female students. After this incident, he disappeared, only to be stalking other girls in another school. How I wished we would never meet again, but I still see him roaming near my school and dorm every now and then, trying to be discreet with his little camera phone. I'm moving to university soon and would be pretty far away from him again. However, will I ever be free from this stalker? I don't know, but let's not meet again. Update. I just checked the news and he got arrested again and will be charged. Finally. They have new reports and new evidence. But yeah, the 1.5 year processing time is really long. Either way, I'm glad to know that we will never meet again. For context, I started driving Uber last week as a way to make some extra cash while I spend the majority of my day studying for a major professional exam. I'm a woman in my early 20s and usually never get bothered by anyone in my daily life. I had recently moved to a more urban part of the city where people call for rides all the time. The hours I usually work are morning, from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., or early evening from 4 p.m. to 7 or so. Some advice I've heard is to never drive past 8 p.m. unless there's a major event happening. Last Wednesday, I was doing my usual Uber driving and picked up all kinds of friendly people, lots of airport rides, rides home from work, etc. It had started raining and there were more requests than usual. Just when I was about to call it a night at 7:52, I got a request right next to my apartment, and I figured it couldn't hurt to pick up one last fare. I have never been more wrong in my whole life. I pull up to a part of the neighborhood that has a lot of bars and see that my passenger looks drunk. Like, very drunk. I considered canceling, but I had pulled up right in front of him and I thought it'd be awkward to cancel after making eye contact. He was a man in his mid-30s, smoking a cigarette. He thankfully threw that away before getting in, and seemed a bit uneven, like he was having some trouble standing up from being so drunk. As soon as he gets in my car, my hackles go up. We started driving to the destination and this guy will not stop talking. He's yammering on and on about how he's rich and he's miserable and now he's having problems with his wife and how he succeeds at business. He was speaking so quickly it sounded like he was trying to set some kind of world record. We get on the highway and we hit traffic. The rain had caused an accident up on the road and we had to wait about 10 minutes. During that time, he gets more and more freaky. He mentions that he's an unmedicated bipolar who self-medicates with alcohol and that he's having major problems with his wife. We had the following exchange. He said, "You know, there's just so much going on. I gotta go on a vacation, like a permanent vacation." Me, internally panicking, "Permanent? Aren't vacations supposed to be temporary?" He says, "Suicide. I mean suicide. Tomorrow by this time I'll be gone, but that's not your problem." I was tempted to ask him to leave my car, but I felt like it was a no-win situation because we're stuck in traffic and neither one has anywhere to go. Now, I do not have any formal de-escalation training, but I have enough sense to not provoke him and just let him keep rambling and bounce off topics. Traffic eventually ends and I'm able to make it to his destination. As we're entering a subdivision, he tells me, "I'm not getting dropped off, just drive around this street really slowly." I'm starting to panic, and I'm thinking that he's either going to jump out of the car and do something crazy, or he's trying to lure me into a setup. Just as I'm thinking that, he says, "So you know me and my wife are fighting and I think she's at her parents'. I just want to drive by and see if she's there." All I can think is, fuck, I'm helping a stalker. So we complete our roundabout and I realize that my phone's at like 1% battery. I mentioned that I need to pull over to a gas station to plug in my charger and he says he's okay with it because he wants to smoke. He hops out and starts smoking, making calls. I was very tempted to leave him there, but we were right by his wife's parents' home and there was nothing preventing him from causing someone serious harm. We eventually get back into my car, and the drive back, he's so drunk that he starts leaning forward and holding on to the passenger seat, I guess to stop swaying or something. He stops rambling as much and starts playing very depressing music on his phone. He continues mentioning suicide several times and how much life isn't worth living. The ride eventually ends, and he gives me a $20 cash tip, then tips me another $20 on the app a couple of days later. As soon as I'm home safely, I call Uber and tell them about the situation. I decided not to call the police because my city's police are notoriously bad at handling mental health cases, and I wasn't able to see his home address to send them to. I've never been more freaked out about anything in my life, and I had so many scenarios running through my head. All I could think was, nothing is preventing me from becoming a statistic. Looking back, I really should have just trusted my gut and canceled the trip. I'm just very grateful not to be on the news. If you do ride sharing as a driver or a passenger, always trust your gut and never worry about canceling a ride. I finally had a place all to myself. I lived in Austin, and I had always had roommates or lived with a roommate. I broke up with my boyfriend and got a place to myself. I went to my parents for Christmas and had a major surgery when I came back. Went back to partying on downtown every night after work. I had a usual routine of coming home at 2 a.m., hopping in the shower, putting on my pajamas, a face mask, hair still in a towel, wrapped up in a blanket, and just watched murder mysteries or alien conspiracies on TV for a couple of hours, because I was usually still pretty high off the night. One night, I felt like something was off, and I looked up from my TV. My apartment had huge windows in the front living room area, and in the back bedroom area that slid like sliding doors. I looked up, and there was a man with his shirt over his head and pants at the ankles, just wanking off to me watching TV with my towel turban and green face mask. I stood up and told him to fuck off and laughed. He ran away and tripped over his pants. I thought nothing of it because keep Austin weird, right? A few nights later, he was back, so I opened the door and I yelled at him. 3 nights after that, he came back. This time, I called the police. They came out, and he obviously wasn't there, but they took my description of naked wanking man. A few nights later, he's back again. I call the police and my friend and coworker, who obviously doesn't believe me. This pattern continues for 2 months. Every few days, this guy would show up. The police were annoyed with me, and they actually put a cop car outside my apartment for 2 weeks. But this guy clearly wasn't going to come over with the cops right outside, so eventually the cops were like, "Sucks for you." It happens again, and they bring out the helicopters over my neighborhood, looking for a naked wanking dude. None of my friends believed me, and I don't think the cops did either. The only person who did believe me was my neighbor, who was in the army, and he took me to buy a security camera that we have nowhere to put because the window was a little too reflective on the camera. Great. So now I have this pattern of calling the cops, neighbors, friends, coworkers who all think I'm making this up every 3 nights or so. My apartment complex said I could leave if I felt like I was in danger, and I genuinely didn't think I was in danger. I was just super annoyed at this guy who was tugging his balls to me in a green face mask during my downtime at 2 a.m. Well, eventually I gave up on everyone believing me, besides my neighbor. He had a sister who had a stalker, so he got it. That night I'm back from partying, I do my usual routine, and I turn on Ancient Aliens. I'm half asleep on my couch when I hear a noise from the bedroom. So I slowly sit up and listen. There's a sliding noise, and then the noise of blinds being opened. I stand up, and thankfully the kitchen drawer with the knives was literally a part of the hallway I was in, so I just started tossing knives down the hallway toward the window, yelling, "What the fuck? Why me?" I finally look at the guy in the window, the naked wanking dude, and he's just staring at me in shock like I'm the crazy one, like I shouldn't be throwing knives at him. And then we had a short staring contest before my neighbor came running downstairs, busting through the door like a fucking Avenger, and the guy ran off. 911 was on the phone, and my neighbor's on the phone with family, telling them to send me back to Dallas and never to put me on the first floor again. I had to do a lineup at the police station. I picked the guy out, but there was no proof it was him, so I was back in Dallas. I eventually went on with my life, and then one day I was watching the news with my brother, and the Austin bomber was on TV. And there he was, the naked wanking dude. So, let's never meet again, and also, I will never live on the first floor again. A few months ago, my sister started talking to a boy online named Ben. The two of them had a lot in common, and were only about a year apart in terms of their ages. We didn't think anything of it at first, because it's normal to have online friends these days. My sister is really introverted, so it was nice to hear that she had someone she could chat to. From what I understand, Ben was also there for her emotionally as well, if that makes sense. My sister became quite attached to him. Ben also introduced her to a few of his friends as well. They all seemed like your typical edgy teenagers, the kind that post selfies with emo song lyrics and stuff like that, similar to what she posts basically. Ben seemed like a normal, caring friend, and he even messaged me a couple of times when he was concerned about my sister being upset. He seemed genuine, and I was happy that my sister had found someone like that. One day, my sister asked my mom if she could meet up with Ben in the city. He lived in another state and had organized to spend a week in our state with his aunt, so it seemed like the perfect opportunity for the two of them to meet up. They arranged a date and time to meet in the city, and my mom and I accompanied her. When that day came, though, he didn't even show up. He made some excuse that his aunt wasn't driving him there, and we figured she was probably concerned about Ben meeting someone he only knows over the internet. I'll admit I did have a really bad feeling about their meetup while we waited for Ben to show, but I stupidly ignored it. My sister, understandably, was quite upset that he hadn't shown. Ben messaged me to apologize to us for having to run after him. He explained that his aunt can be unreasonable at times. At that moment, I genuinely believed he was a decent person and wasn't lying about his situation. A couple months passed with just the two of them chatting away like normal. At some point, my mom gets the idea that she and my sister could fly to his state and meet him, and his mom, in case she was worried. Ben liked that idea, and so they ordered the flight tickets. One day, out of the blue, my sister burst into my room, clearly frightened. She told me to block Ben and the two friends he'd introduced her to earlier. When I asked her why, she explained to me that Ben had been a cover-up identity for a person that had previously threatened her using another account. All the pictures that he posted were from someone else's account. She found this out and confronted him. His two friends that he'd chatted with on his posts and everything were all fake accounts run by him to keep up the illusion. The person, after being confronted by my sister, admitted they were keeping tabs on her, and that they had been chatting with her for months, and she had likely told him some really personal things, too. The flights were immediately canceled after my mom found out, and we were all spooked about the whole thing. I still am, and I'm even a little paranoid about sharing this. Couldn't tell the police, because my sister was a dingus and didn't keep a copy of the messages the account sent her. The account was taken down after we informed the guy whose pictures were stolen about the incident. So, to whoever this person is, let's never cross paths again. A little background about me. I'm a 19-year-old, petite, double D carrying female that plays video games. I think you already know where this is going. I met the guy we'll call GT, short for Guilt Tripper, when he was 16 and I was about to turn 18 on Discord through a couple other friends I play Quake and Dark Souls 3 with. At first, he was really nice, and we got along really well. We talked about comics we collected and similar things. After 4 months of gaming together, one of our friends, Jay, and another, L, decided to do a group video call, with me included. At first the guys were being typical guys, marry me, or I'm trying to slide into those DMs like an avalanche. Stupid stuff. We kid about calling each other thoughts and shit, you know. Well, GT kept messaging me, telling me how cute I was and how I looked like his favorite waifu. Yeah, I was kinda creeped out, but I brushed it off due to being used to guys either joking or teasing or being way creepier than that. Well, it definitely did get creepier, because he would message me constantly, and when I didn't message back, he would Discord call me. Not one, not two, but around fucking 15 times. I had told everybody in our friends group about my boyfriend and constantly bragged about what he said or cheesy ass stuff. When I kept getting the huge I like you vibes, I persistently brought up my boyfriend. GT would respond by saying how he hates himself and his life and how if I left him, he would kill himself. There was nothing to leave, we weren't in a relationship, but I kept getting guilt-tripped until he downloaded some of my Facebook pictures and posted them on his Snapchat saying that I was his girlfriend, including one snap where I wrote how I liked how my boyfriend teased me. I had him on Snapchat, but I didn't see the post until my friends asked me if I was dating him. I didn't see it because apparently the guy blocked me from seeing it by setting this snap so that only I could see certain pictures. I responded, no, I'm still dating my boyfriend. I flipped out on JT saying how I was uncomfortable with him and if he couldn't understand that we were just friends, then that was it. He called me crying, promising to stop after trying to guilt trip me again with the I'll kill myself bullshit. The final straw was him taking screenshots of my Snapchat pics. Again. And when I confronted him, his reply made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I shit you not. This guy did not apologize. He didn't feel guilty for making me feel angry or scared. He said, "You're just so beautiful, I wanted to keep them and look at how beautiful you are. You know, you're just so nice, listening to my problems, saying how you'll always be there for me. It just makes me want you more and more. I've been working out so when I visit you, you'll like me better. You said when I'm in someone's life, I'll never leave first. I'll always try my best for them, so try your best for me. Date me. If you don't, I swear to you I'll slit my wrists." I was terrified. I felt grossed out that this person took my kindness for something else. I wish I could have said I told him some sassy comeback, but nope. I just blocked him on everything. Then I cried to my boyfriend and told my friends I didn't want to be anywhere near him. Some time passed and I got a new friend request on Snapchat. I was then sent a picture of plane tickets to my country. I blocked them, and to this day I never add anyone I don't know on Snapchat. Also, I don't show my face to anyone online unless there's somebody I truly know. It's been a year and no contact. Thank God, any God, and let's never meet again, in real life or online, anywhere. So let's start with, I'm a 20-year-old female, and 4 years ago I was a high school junior working at a Chick-fil-A, and I was also ridiculously stupid and naive. So about 4 years ago I started my very first job at a Chick-fil-A, and for some reason my first and last name were on my name tag. Anyways, I apparently took this guy's order, Scott, and he memorized my name and he looked me up on Facebook. I very stupidly added him because it said that he went to my high school at the time. Well, he messages me and I quickly find out that he has not only graduated high school, but has also graduated from college. Now at the time, I was like, oh, this isn't that weird, but now that I'm actually in college, I find it very strange that a 22-year-old was hitting on a 16-year-old. Anyways, so we were talking, and he tries to take me out on a date to an orchestra concert that's over an hour away from my house. I was at least smart enough to reject this idea. For the next couple of weeks, we keep messaging, and I keep messaging him back for a while. He started asking some really personal questions about my age, sexuality, and other stuff, but usually our conversations were very platonic. But he still always commented on my looks and how attractive he found me. I slowly stopped talking to him and didn't give him another thought. Then my graduation rolls around and he messages me again, trying to get me to go out with him, but he refuses to tell me where, so obviously I refuse. So then I have completely forgotten about him until recently. I currently work in a resource lounge for students in a student center for my college. One day I was working and an older guy with grayish hair comes up and says he needs some help. I ask him to tell me what he needs, and I put his name into the computer system, and he tells me that it's Scott. My mind starts racing, wondering if it was really him, and sure enough, Scott decided to go back to get another bachelor's degree at my college. Now, that's not completely weird, but I found it odd that he chose my college, and he chose to go to the resource center where I work, during the hours I work. What a big coincidence, so I'm still not convinced that this was weird yet. Well, being a college student, I also work at a retail store on the weekends, and I'm pretty much guaranteed to work every Sunday. Well, one Sunday, he comes in and just walks around and doesn't buy anything. Then he makes eye contact with me before walking out. Okay, odd. Next Sunday, he comes in and just walks around and doesn't buy anything, looks at me, then walks out. Now, after a few more times of this, I unfriend him on Facebook and just hope everything is a giant coincidence. But he quickly realizes that I've unfriended him and tries to friend me again. Then again, 2 days later. I finally blocked him, but I think this guy has really bad intentions, so Scott, I can't wait for the day where we can stop meeting. Around a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I was using an app called Whisper to help with making friends after getting out of high school. I was 19 at the time, had a really nice boyfriend, etc. I had used Whisper before and actually made 2 or 3 friends during my senior year, and also found a friend of mine's boyfriend cheating using Whisper, so safe to say this app can be a handful at times. I put out a whisper asking for someone to talk to, and of course I got a ton of replies, but I couldn't get to all of them. But I messaged some more interesting ones back. This guy named Jack started messaging me, and he seemed really nice. He said he was 23 and lived 8 minutes from my house. If you use Whisper, then you know you can search by area or go into a general section and see thousands of whispers being uploaded that you can reply to. You can also send photos instantly after 4 messages for some reason. As soon as we messaged 4 times, he sent me a selfie, and I was surprised but didn't really respond about it. Jack was telling me how he worked for a towing company in a neighboring town, how he would have to go use the interstate to go places. All that. At the time, I didn't have a job because my mother was sick, and so I would use my laptop out in the kitchen at the table to watch streams and play some games in case she needed me at any point. I remember watching my friends stream, talking to my friends, and generally just having a good time until I got a text from Jack. Now, I never gave him my address, never even really explained where I live. I didn't mention the church, the interstate, nothing that was by me. But he texted me saying, "Hey, look out the window." I thought maybe something happened on the interstate, but then I remembered I never told him how close that was to me, but I assumed maybe he just guessed that I lived nearby. I see a tow truck right outside my house with a car that broke down or something. My blood ran cold. He was at the truck, waving. Also very inappropriate while working, but that's beside the point. I started shaking due to having some bad anxiety. I ended up having an anxiety attack. I mean, how did he know where I lived? I replied asking what he meant, and he said, "Well, you're home, aren't you?" I didn't respond, went back to the stream I had up and started typing to my friends, freaking out to them and causing them to panic as well. I didn't want to call the cops because my cousin is one, and so is one of my friends. As soon as anything was heard about it, I thought I'd be in deep shit for it, so I just ignored him. Then, he sent me a dick pic on the app. I was disgusted and deleted the post and messages from Whisper. I also blocked him. The next day, an unknown number texted me, and I figured out it was him. I ignored it, and then I got a restricted phone call, and I picked it up. Big mistake. I was out in the garage with my cat. She's a stray. And this voice on the other end said, "Hey, you look so sexy right now. Want to go for ice cream down the road?" I looked out the door that was next to me, and I see him in his car, driving slow, keeping his eyes locked on me. I jumped up and ran inside after hanging up, running to my room so I could feel comforted by my blankets and my bed. I was petrified. I got a job soon after at Subway, and he would come in and start harassing me, texting me on random numbers since I would block them all. I felt paranoid all the time, knowing that he seemed to know where I was at all times. One day, my now ex-boyfriend ended up texting him. I had given him his original number that I got just in case anything had happened since I blocked it. He was furiously telling him to leave me alone, stop stalking me, everything. I never got a message after that, but I'm still paranoid that he's still out there, watching me. So Jack, let's not meet. This starts in the summer of 2013. I was 15 at the time. I've always been a shy, quiet gamer girl, so summer gave me time to just have my peace. But I did hang out with some of my friends from time to time. On this day, I met up with my good friend Matt. We went to the mall, and often we would run into schoolmates there. And that's when we ran into him. He was friends with our friend Lindsay, so we ended up talking and hanging out for a while. I was so infatuated. He had just gotten a tattoo, and I was really intrigued by it. His name was Alex. At the end of the hangout, Alex asked for my number. We had been talking about games and anime and had a great time, so I was excited to give him my number. Matt warned me about Alex, though. He said that he wasn't a good relationship guy, but I didn't listen. I ignored it, and things went normal. Just a lot of texting, but then we decided to hang out alone. I was a virgin at the time, and Alex was 20, out of school, and slept around from rumors I had heard. I didn't care though. He was so cool at the time, I couldn't think straight. So we hung out, went to a school that was empty because of summer. Alex became different then, in his texts, which were romantic and sweet. He was pressuring me to let him take my innocence because I'm, quote, such a goody-goody, and I kept laughing it off like a joke. Then we sat down on a blanket by the bushes in the soccer field. I'm ashamed to say what happened next. We started kissing, and suddenly his hand was under my dress, and he just shot his finger inside me. He didn't even ask, and it hurt. I tried not to cry, because I wanted him to like me so bad. But I think he felt my discomfort, and told me that that's what I should do to myself to be ready for him. I told him I didn't want to, and shortly after that he walked me home. Eventually my mother found out that I was hanging around with this guy and told me to never speak to him again. She was convinced I had slept with him. She tells me we're moving to a new city that's 4 hours away from where we live, and that he won't bother us. She also had a boyfriend in this city, so that's why she wanted to move there too. Alex tells me that he's going to that city for college, and I tell my mom, but she doesn't believe me. She assumed he was just saying that so that we didn't move. I didn't want to talk to Alex much after the school hangout, so I listened to my mom and I didn't message him or anything. I even got a new phone. Suddenly I get a Skype message when I'm at my new school. It's him. He knows which school I go to, and he said he's going to meet me for lunch. I didn't have any friends, so stupid me went. We get back together, secretly, but no title, which frustrated me to no end. He would only talk to me about sex, so I dumped him because he didn't love me, clearly, and that's when things went downhill. I blocked him on everything, but one day after school I got off my bus and felt as though I was being watched. He was behind me. I could feel it. I saw him in the corner of my eye, and my whole body went into a panic. I walked faster, hoping he didn't notice me and that it was just a coincidence. He was closer than before, and he whispered, "Oh, thought you would never see me again." He smirked. I ran. He ran toward me. I got home and locked the door and chain. I turned to my mom and said someone catcalled me because I was too afraid she would think we were back together if I told her the truth. Months go by, and somehow this manipulation worked again. He told me how terrible my mom was for not letting us be together and how I needed to get out of the house. I started to believe him. I knew it was wrong to be with him, but I blamed my mom for why I was unhappy. He told me I should stay at a women's shelter for troubled teens and he would take care of me. I listened. I packed some bags, and on my 16th birthday, my sister caught me trying to run away. I chickened out. I told my mom I was sorry and was grounded for a long time. No phone. He was so pissed at me, and I just decided he wasn't worth this pain any longer. My family was so disappointed in me because of some guy. It just wasn't worth it. A year goes by with me feeling like I'm being watched from time to time, trying to get help. My grades went down, I was nervous, my anxiety became worse, and my depression developed. We didn't have a car, and we're going to visit my family in our old town by a bus for Christmas. I hadn't heard from or seen Alex in about a year, and I had just turned 17. My mom and I sit together, and she falls asleep. I play some Candy Crush on my phone and text my friends about how I can't wait to see them. I get a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I realize why when I look beside me in the next seat of seats over. Alex. He smirked, but looked away as though I didn't see him. I try to ignore it, but he messages me on a new number. It says, "Miss me?" I get a panic attack, and my hands start shaking, and I block the number and try to sleep. On the way back into town, he does it again, but no messages, and I spend both bus rides trying to stay calm and not panic. Months go by again. We decide as a family to move back to our old town as my mom broke up with her boyfriend, and we missed our family. I was on the last semester of grade 12, so I was upset not to go to prom with my new friends, but I was happy to get away from Alex. Life just goes on. I made a few friends, and I even got a boyfriend in my old town. Turns out my new boyfriend at the time knew Alex. I told him he was a creep and to keep him away from me. Greg, my new boyfriend, just laughed it off. Alex finds out about the new boyfriend and flips out at Greg, so I unblocked Alex and told him to fuck off. Alex tells me how he moved back into town and how this is a betrayal and I'm his, and how he's depressed and suicidal. I try to let him know I can't be his girl, but could be a friend if he was that upset, as I didn't wish harm on him. Greg didn't care and invited Alex to a party we went to and didn't tell me that Alex was going. I got tipsy playing beer pong with my friends, and Greg played Magic the Gathering, leaving me basically alone. At some point, I had to pee. The door didn't lock at this place, so I was filled with anxiety, but I figured whatever, I just have to pee and no one's down here in the basement anyway. I hear a bang on the door. I say, "Someone's in here," and the door slams open. Alex laughs, and he's high on weed, but not drunk like me. I cover myself, sitting there, and he pulls me by the hair. The music was loud, and covered by the sound, my tears, I begged him to leave me alone, but he started touching me everywhere, attempting to pull my clothing off, and I hit the ground. He gets on top of me, pinning me down. His eyes looked soulless. Someone came down the stairs, and he quickly shut me out of the bathroom to go pee. I get up and run out of the house, crying, and Greg takes me home. I didn't tell anyone. I was too embarrassed. Months go by, and he keeps trying to get me to leave my boyfriend, saying he could take care of me. He promised me picnics and romantic getaways. Greg was a bad boyfriend, but he never hurt me, and I cared for him, but eventually we did break up. Alex assumed I was his and tried taking me out on dates. Something in me changed after the breakup. I learned that I don't have to put up with other people's bullshit just to make them happy. I deserve happiness too. So I finally just blocked him on everything and made sure I had someone with me at places like the mall in case he was there, but eventually he gave up. At least I think he did. My current boyfriend looks pretty intimidating, though he's a total sweetheart. so most guys don't bother me anymore. I will be getting therapy to deal with this situation, but Alex, if you're out there listening to this, please let's never meet again. This took place a few years ago now, when I was still in high school. My parents own a company that provides a service that at the time only them and one other company in the area did. They had been rivals for years, trying to beat each other out for jobs. My parents were the newer company of the two, but many clients thought they did better work, so they quickly became a popular go-to for many. The owner of the other company absolutely despised us and was constantly trying to undermine my dad and just straight up talking crap about him. One day it came out that the owner of the other company had been involved in many illegal activities, including fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, the whole nine. For some reason, the owner blamed my parents for him being found out. The man was paranoid as hell, and started threatening my parents, saying that he was going to ruin their business and hurt my sister and I. My sister was away at college in a totally different state, so we weren't too concerned about her, but my parents made sure I knew what was going on and told me to just be aware of my surroundings, just in case. I wasn't too worried. I'd been in martial arts training most of my life, always carried pepper spray, and had a knife in my car. I knew I could handle myself if I had to. Flash forward a few days and it's after school. It was late fall, so sports were over for the season and I had nothing to do after school but go home. I walked to my car in the parking lot, got in, and began the relatively long journey home because I live in the next town over out of the county. I pull out onto the road and notice a Navy car pull out of the alley, a car or two behind me. Odd, considering most people don't use the alley, but not totally out of place. Making my way across the river and into my town, the car is now right behind me as the others have gone in other directions. I can't entirely make out who's driving, but I can tell it's a middle-aged man. I start driving the roads to leave the in-town area and head up to the suburb part, and this car is still behind me. Is this impossible? No. I have plenty of friends that live out this way, that come to the exact same roads I do, and there are multiple businesses by the high school that would warrant someone taking the same path. But this whole time, ever since I saw him come out of the alley, something had felt off about this Navy car. Getting closer to the countryside, this man is still behind me and my stomach is in knots. Something isn't right, and I always trust my gut. I decided to test him and turn on a road that will bring me out further up the street, but is definitely a longer way to get home, and no one would ever go that way. The man follows me, and now I know that something is up. I start flying down the road, trying to put space between us so I can lose him. I eventually get out to the countryside, and while our distance has increased, I can still kind of see him in my rear view, and knew he'd be able to see me since I have a bright blue car. So I turn down a side road that takes you kind of through the woods with many veering stone paths that are easy to get lost on if you don't know the area. I take those, turning every which way to lose the car and make him get lost. Eventually, I can no longer see him at all and decide it's okay to exit this labyrinth and get to my home, which is empty save for my dog because my parents were still at work. I quickly pull into my garage and close the door so no one would be able to see my car if they drove past. I go inside the house, relock the door I entered through, and crouch by the living room window to see if the car will drive by. Not even 5 minutes later, here comes the Navy car steadily driving down the road, clearly looking for something. Maybe me. This road is 40 miles per hour, and he was doing maybe 20 to 25. As he passes, I see the back of the car, and it has a sticker with the other company's logo on it. I felt like I could vomit. I knew something felt off about that car. When my dad got home, I told him everything that happened, and he let the chief of police know. Small town, he was able to just shoot him a text, but since I couldn't make out the plates, there wasn't much they could do. A week or two later, though, the owner of the company was being sent to jail, and the company was shut down, so that was the end of that, and everything went back to normal, thankfully. But creepy owner of that rival company and person sent to follow me home, let's not meet. I'm not even sure how to start this story off, but here's a little background. I've had my Instagram for about 5 years. I post pretty simple photos, ones of me, and I'm a photographer and an artist, so a good amount of pictures that I take as well. I don't have a large following, so considering this started about 4 years ago, I probably had maybe 2,000 followers, and most of them were friends, family, or friends of friends. One day I posted a screenshot on my private Instagram of someone random viewing my story. I'm not sure what the context was, but it doesn't really matter. Soon after, a friend of mine pointed out that one of the Instagram accounts that I was viewing my story had a profile picture that was a photo of my friend, so I immediately went to their account. When I went to their account, I noticed that all of their pictures were ones screenshotted from my account, and I immediately started freaking out. They went by a kind of Russianized version of my name and had around 1,000 followers. I was totally baffled. This account didn't last that long and was receiving probably more activity than my own account was. I was confused, but I also knew that that was what happened when you have a public Instagram, and some catfish isn't going to ruin my life, so I reported the account and moved on. Soon after, I started getting messages from random Instagram accounts that all seemed to be coming from Russia. They would send me messages and screenshots of different accounts that also seemed to be Russian, of people pretending to be me. I started to panic more, as I knew that not only was it not just one person, but that many people knew about it and genuinely thought that I was a completely different person than I was. I kept reporting these accounts, and they would mysteriously delete and then show up under new names, but at this point my Instagram account was blocked by pretty much all of the catfish accounts. I logged into a friend's Instagram and noticed tagged photos of this catfish of me, drawings, many drawings, people drawing me, who they totally thought was some random Russian girl. There was a Twitter account, a YouTube account, a VK, which is a Russian-based social media account, a Facebook account, all under this fake name and using photos of me. I finally got a lot of the accounts deleted and I felt relieved. Then, probably about 6 months later, I got another message on Instagram from some other random Russian account sending me to yet another fake profile pretending to be me. The first thing that stuck out to me was the fact that they had a photo of my mom and I from when I was a baby. A photo that was only available on my mom's Facebook, which is not public. I panicked, reported the account, and told all of my friends to do the same. Then I got curious and started wondering who these people were that were finding and sending these accounts. I went deep back into my Instagram DMs and found that those accounts were now also catfishes of me. I don't know what part of me thought it would be a good idea to message them, but I did. I ended up having a very odd conversation with them where they told me that they used photos of me because I looked like them and they were self-conscious. They even said that they show their family photos of me and pretend it's them. One day, I tried to log into my Instagram and it said that someone in Russia had made numerous attempts to change my password. Fucking insane. Basically, I'll save the time and effort and say that this went on for another 3 years, happening randomly about every 6 months. Finally, there was one account made using my own name. I was so furious and had completely given up. A few of my friends messaged them and told them to delete their account. They then DM'd me, apologized in broken English, and then decided that they were going to turn the account into a fan page. Again, fucking weird. I even got to a point where I was considering calling up the producers of Catfish or something, literally anything. The fan page was running for probably 3 months, but it seems to me that they've deleted it. I still get weird messages from Russian accounts that seemed similar to the others. I don't feel quite as freaked out by it though. The whole situation sucks because I was never directly threatened or put in a situation where I felt like my life was in serious danger, so I have no recourses. I couldn't go to the police, but there were definitely times when I felt like I was being watched too closely for someone who isn't famous or anything near it. Not really sure how to end the story because it probably never will end. But to my Russian stalkers, let's not meet. This happened last Friday and I'm still stumped. For reference, I'm a male in my late 20s and live with my girlfriend who is currently away on business. I work for a large financial institution in the UK and often work until very late at night, as I hate bringing work home. For some background info, we bought our current house a few weeks ago, and during the move-in process, I was away with work, leaving it down to my partner and a few friends. My car has also recently had a complete electronics failure, so we were down to using just her car. The house itself is located in a small, gated community off a country road on the outskirts of an upmarket town in the UK. It's surrounded by woodlands, and if you didn't live there or know somebody who does, chances are you wouldn't have heard of it or even knew of its existence. In total, there are 8 houses in the community, and the main gate gives access to the first 6. Where my house is located, then there's further down 2 more gates at the top of the road which lead to 2 very large mansion-style houses. The houses, which haven't got individual gates, are all about 100 feet away from each other and have enclosed rear gardens, and the neighbors are all business types who are very often in work and keep themselves to themselves. Anyway, about 2 days after leaving for my business trip, I get a call from my girlfriend who seems shaken and tells me that there's a man standing out in the garden, and that she can't see his face, but he's walking around and crouching in the tree line. So, concerned but not 100% convinced, as she does have a vivid imagination and it's the first time she's been home alone in our new house, I tell her to lock the doors, go to bed, and call the police if she sees him again. I return to our city's train station on Tuesday and agree with my girlfriend that she'll pick me up in her car, then I'll take it home as she's scheduled to go to Manchester for a conference. I meet up with her, grab a coffee, see her off to her train, and then drive her car back to our house. The time is roughly 9 p.m. I park the car on the driveway, head inside, shower, watch some reruns of King of the Hill, and then go to bed. Then I get woken up by a light being shown into the bedroom window from downstairs. I get up to investigate, crouching to avoid being seen, and head into the study next to our bedroom and open the curtains that cover some French doors that lead to a small balcony. My heart drops when I see that a man has now moved toward the back door and is trying the handle. The house is in an L shape, so although I can see him, he can't see me without moving around from the back door. He stops for a while, begins flashing the light on and off, back into the woods, before walking calmly back into them. I call the police and make a report. Nothing happens on Wednesday, but on Thursday, when I'm giving our cat a bath, I hear the garage door being messed with. I'm in the bathroom directly behind the garage, so I move into the kitchen and get a knife before heading into the garage to check what's going on when the noises abruptly stopped. Then I hear running down the driveway away from our house. I call the police and they send an officer around to check the property. All they find is some knife marks and scuffs on the bottom of the garage. On Friday, I get my car delivered from the dealership and decide to work from home. I also park my car in the garage, leaving my girlfriend's on the drive. At around 11, I'm in the upstairs study, listening to music, working late into the night, when I find myself freezing. I thought I was going to stop breathing as I felt someone watching me. And then turning to face the French doors, I see a man, nondescript looking, around 35, wearing a coat and gloves, carrying what looked to be a flashlight, standing on my balcony. Our eyes met. Now filled with rage, I go for one of my golf clubs from my bag and charge towards the door. He climbs down off the balcony and runs off into the woods. I have never seen this man in my life before, but I'm sure that it's a man that's been causing problems recently. It's also dawned on me that he would have only seen my girlfriend before, and only seen her car. Maybe he thought she lived alone. I've notified the police and have bought some more security devices to install on the property, as well as parked my car on the drive with hers. We don't know who he is or why he's doing this, but we're hoping that we never meet him again. Welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that selection of Stalker stories. I don't think I've done a specifically Stalker video on this channel before, even though it is basically Let's Not Meet stories, but I don't think I've done that theme specifically in a video before, so I thought that would be an interesting one to cover. I'm still working on other stuff, as always, trying to find time during the summer where I can record with the window shut and not die because it's really hot in here. But if I have it open, as you can probably hear right now, there's just children all around where I live just screaming. All of our backyards kind of converge, and then right on the other side of that is the base. So, and we're coming up on the 4th, so it's a little loud right now. But I'm doing my best to get you guys some content. And I'll probably have a blooper reel coming up soon just for fun, because then you guys can hear how ridiculous I am when I try to record. Alright, yeah, I have some other stuff to tell you guys, but I will tell you in a future video. I'm working on something pretty epic for Halloween. It's not the project I wanted to do because that project is bigger than I have time for, so I'll do it next year. But yeah, lot of stuff in October, so I'm pre-planning a lot, which is why I've been a little quiet now. But I do have 2 or 3 more chapters of Dracula to upload during this week and the weekend, so lots of stuff to come. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. We haven't had a premiere in a while. Well, hello. In a while. So I just thought it'd be fun to chat with you guys and have a premiere. Alright, so that's it for me tonight. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.